The Tarvan Royal Palace stood like a shining jewel in the heart of the galaxy. Its towers were carved from living crystal that glowed softly under the twin suns. Every hall sparkled as if starlight had been captured and poured into the walls. Visitors from across the stars often stopped in awe at the sight, and today, one such visitor was about to face the most unusual meeting of his life. Captain Elias Vance of Earth walked through the great crystal gates, his steps echoing across the polished floors. His black diplomatic uniform was simple compared to the glittering robes of the Tarvan courtiers who watched him with curious and sometimes amused eyes. To them, humans were newcomers, a young species that had only recently joined the interstellar community. Elias had been sent as an envoy to discuss a new trade agreement. It was a chance to prove humanity's worth among the great powers. But as he approached the throne room, he could already hear soft laughter and whispers around him. The Tarvan king, tall and regal, sat upon a throne shaped from a single crystal block. His golden eyes glowed faintly, and his voice was calm but strong as he addressed the court. Beside him stood his three daughters, Princess Lyra, Princess Selene, and Princess Aria. Each was dressed in robes of woven starlight, and each carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. When Elias entered, the eldest, Lyra, tilted her head slightly, studying him as if he were a strange insect. "So this is the human envoy?" she said, her voice carrying a note of disbelief. Selene, the second sister, smiled faintly. "He looks fragile. Are all humans this small?" Aria, the youngest, giggled softly. "Father, I hope you did not invite him here to challenge us in anything physical. He might break." The courtiers chuckled, and Elias could feel their eyes on him, weighing him, doubting him. Still, he stood tall, keeping his face calm. He had been warned that the Tarvan respected strength and confidence, and nothing would be gained by showing anger. "I am here," Elias said evenly, "to represent my people and to discuss a future where our worlds may trade and learn from one another." Lyra's smile was polite but sharp. "Trade? What could humanity offer the Tarvan Empire? Your ships are slower, your weapons weaker, and your technology quaint." Elias could feel the test in her words. This was not just a conversation. This was a stage, and the entire court was the audience. He glanced at the king, who remained silent, as if waiting to see how the human would respond. "Perhaps," Elias said, "but there are things that speed and weapons cannot measure. Creativity, adaptability, the will to stand when the odds say you should fall." Selene's eyes narrowed. "And you believe humanity has these things more than we do?" "I believe," Elias replied, "that every species has its own strengths, and perhaps ours are simply different from yours." The youngest sister, Aria, leaned forward in interest. "Different? Or weaker?" "Different," Elias said again, firmly. The court murmured. It was not the answer they had expected. Most visitors tried to impress the Tarvan with boasts or exaggerated claims, hoping to win favor. But this human did not brag, nor did he bow too low. He spoke with calm certainty, as though he had nothing to prove to anyone but himself. The king finally spoke. "You carry yourself with composure, human. Few in this hall could remain so steady under my daughter's questions." The sisters exchanged glances. They were used to being feared or admired instantly, not quietly matched in a battle of words. Lyra lifted her chin. "Perhaps, father, we should see what else this human can withstand." "A small test?" The king's golden eyes gleamed. "Perhaps. But tests must have a purpose." Elias knew this was where things would become dangerous. A Tarvan test could mean anything from a riddle to a life-threatening challenge. Yet he met the king's gaze and said, "If a test will help you, Decide whether my people are worth your time? I will face it." That answer brought a ripple of surprise through the court. Seleni's lips curved in a faint smile. "You are brave, human, or perhaps foolish. We shall see which." The king rose from his throne, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the crystal floor. "Then it is settled. My daughters will decide the nature of your trials. If you pass, the court will recognize your people as worthy allies. If you fail—" He let the words hang in the air, leaving the consequence unspoken. Elias bowed his head slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. "I understand." As the audience began to disperse, the three sisters remained near the throne, whispering to one another. Their eyes occasionally flicked toward Elias, studying him as if he were both a puzzle and a challenge. In that moment, Elias realized something. This was no ordinary diplomatic meeting. The sisters were proud, intelligent, and perhaps a little too certain of their own superiority. If he could win their respect, it would open the door not just to trade, but to something far greater: trust. The king's voice broke through his thoughts. "Rest tonight, Captain Vance. Tomorrow, your tests will begin." And with that, the first steps of a strange and unexpected path were set in motion, one that would lead not only to trials of skill and mind, but to an order from the king. That would shock the entire court. Elias left the throne room with the quiet confidence of a man who knew he was underestimated. He had no idea yet what the sisters would demand of him, but one thing was certain. He would face it not as a representative of a fragile species, but as a human who refused to bend. Far above the palace, the twin suns dipped lower, casting long golden beams across the city of crystal. Tomorrow, the galaxy's opinion of humanity might change forever. The morning came with a warm golden glow from the twin suns over the Tarvan capital. The city's crystal spires caught the light and scattered it into thousands of rainbows across the streets. Captain Elias Vance stood at the balcony of his guest chamber, looking out at the alien city. It was beautiful, but his thoughts were not peaceful. Today, the trials would begin. The Tarvan king had given his daughters the freedom to choose them, and Elias knew they would not make it easy. Soft knock came at the door. A tall Tarvan servant entered, bowing slightly. "Captain Vance, His Majesty requests your presence in the throne room immediately." Elias was surprised. The trials were not supposed to start until the afternoon. He quickly straightened his uniform and followed the servant through the palace corridors. When he entered the throne room, the atmosphere was different from yesterday. The hall was quieter, more serious. The king sat on his crystal throne, the three princesses standing at his side. The courtiers lined the walls, watching silently. "Captain Vance," the king began, his voice deep and measured, "last night, I considered your arrival here and the words you spoke. I have reached a decision, one that will surprise many in this hall." The princesses exchanged puzzled glances. The king continued, "Our empire stands at a turning point. Enemies gather in the dark, waiting for a moment of weakness. The Tarvan need allies who bring not only strength, but new ways of thinking. Humanity is young, but I see in you a certain potential." Elias stood still, unsure where this was leading. The king's gaze sharpened. "Therefore, I have decided that my daughters will not simply test you for sport. Instead, you will be bound to this royal family, through marriage." The words fell like a meteor into the room. The courtiers murmured in shock. Lyra's eyes widened. Celine's lips parted in disbelief. Arya blinked, as if certain she had misheard. Elias himself was taken aback. "Your Majesty, that is a great honor, but—" The king raised a hand, silencing him. "This is not only about honor, it is strategy. By joining my daughters to you, I join my empire to your people. It will make enemies think twice before moving against either of us. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but edged with steel. Father, you cannot be serious. This human— I am serious, the king interrupted. This decision is final. Selene frowned. We do not even know if he can survive our way of life. That, the king said, is what your trials will decide. They will no longer be games to amuse the court. They will be tests to determine if he is worthy to be one of you. Arya tilted her head, still watching Elias. And if he fails? The king's voice was firm. Then the alliance will not proceed and humanity will lose a valuable opportunity. But I believe he will not fail. The court erupted into quiet whispers. Elias felt the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. This was no longer just about trade. If he passed these trials, he would be bound to 3 alien princesses, a concept he could hardly process. But he also understood what this meant for his people. A direct alliance with the Tarvan Empire could change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. I accept your terms, Elias said slowly, his voice steady. If your daughters are willing, I will face whatever trials they set. The king nodded. Good. Then it is settled. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. We will see if your courage matches your words, human. Selene's expression softened, but only a little. Do not think we will go easy on you because of father's decision. Arya smiled faintly. I hope you are ready. This will be interesting. The king dismissed the court, but the air remained heavy with tension. Outside the throne room, Elias found himself walking beside the 3 princesses down a long crystal hallway. Lyra was the first to speak. You must understand, Captain, that we did not ask for this arrangement. I understand, Elias replied, calmly, but I will face your challenges honestly. I'm not here to trick anyone. Selene gave him a sidelong glance. Honesty is rare in politics. We will see how far it takes you. Arya laughed softly. I like him. He doesn't seem afraid. Elias smiled faintly. Fear and respect are not the same thing. The sisters exchanged glances, perhaps reconsidering their first impressions of the human envoy. That evening, Elias returned to his chamber to prepare for the next day. He did not know what kind of tests awaited him. They could involve physical skill, mental puzzles, or diplomacy. The Tarvan were unpredictable, and the sisters even more so. As night fell over the crystal city, the lights of the palace glimmered like stars fallen to the ground. Somewhere deep inside, Elias felt a strange mix of determination and curiosity. He had not expected this mission to turn into a personal trial of worth, much less to carry the fate of a royal marriage. Far away, in a quiet chamber, the king spoke privately with an advisor. They think this is only about a test, the king said, his eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. But I see something greater. This human could be the key to a future where the Tarvan are not just feared, but respected by all. And if my daughters learn to see beyond the surface, they will become stronger leaders themselves. The advisor bowed. And if you are wrong? Chaker. King's smile was calm. Then I will have been wrong in the most interesting way possible. And so, the stage was set. 3 proud alien princesses, 1 determined human, and a challenge that would test more than strength or intelligence. In the days to come, the palace would become a place of trials, surprises, and a battle of wills that might change the course of 2 civilizations. The next morning, the palace buzzed with quiet excitement. Word had spread quickly. The human envoy was about to face the royal princess's trials. Courtiers, servants, and guards all whispered their predictions. Some thought he would fail before the day ended. Others were curious to see how far he could go. Captain Elias Vance walked into the great hall where the first challenge would begin. The 3 princesses were already waiting, each wearing a different shade of silver robes. Lyra stood with her, Arms crossed, Selene had a thoughtful look, and Arya's eyes sparkled with anticipation. The king sat on his throne, observing silently. "Daughters," he said, "you may begin." Lyra stepped forward. "For the first test, we will see if the human can pilot a Tarvan warship through the Solaris storm belt. Many skilled pilots of our empire fail here. It is a place where asteroids, plasma storms, and magnetic waves all strike at once. We will be on board to watch," the court murmured. The Solaris storm belt was famous for swallowing ships whole. Elias simply nodded. "Then let's begin. Trial 1. The storm belt. The Tarvan warship was a sleek silver vessel with long wings that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Elias stepped into the pilot's seat, feeling the unfamiliar controls under his hands. The three sisters sat behind him, ready to observe every move. "Do you even know how to fly one of these?" Arya asked playfully. "I've flown ships before," Elias replied calmly. "Just not one like this." Lyra's voice was firm. "Then you will fail quickly." The ship entered the Solaris storm belt, and chaos began instantly. Lightning arcs of blue plasma streaked across the darkness. Asteroids spun unpredictably, and the ship's sensors screamed warnings. Elias didn't try to match Tarvan precision flying. Instead, he read the storm like a living thing, adjusting course in small, sudden shifts. He used the asteroids, movement to shield the ship from plasma bursts, and dipped into magnetic shadows to avoid interference. Selene leaned forward, surprised. "You're not following the standard Tarvan flight path." "That's because the storm knows that path," Elias said with a faint smile. "Why make it easy for the enemy?" The ship emerged from the storm without a scratch. Lyra's expression was unreadable, but Arya clapped her hands in delight. "First trial completed," the king announced from the observation deck. "The human passes. Trial 2. The council debate." The next trial took place in the High Council chamber, a vast round room where the Empire's most skilled diplomats argued matters of law and war. Selene took charge of this challenge. "For this trial," Selene explained, "you will argue against me before the council. The topic will be trade rights in the neutral zone. Your goal is to persuade the council to side with you." Elias nodded. "Understood." The debate began. Selene spoke with the grace and precision of someone raised in diplomacy, listing the Tarvan's claims and advantages in the neutral zone. Her points were logical, and her voice carried authority. When it was Elias's turn, he didn't try to overpower her arguments with technical details. Instead, he spoke of fairness, of long-term alliances built on trust rather than force. He told a story of two villages on Earth who avoided war by sharing a river, and how that choice made both villages grow stronger. The council listened intently. They had heard many arguments filled with numbers and threats, but few that appealed to vision and cooperation. When the debate ended, the council voted, by a narrow margin, in favor of Elias's proposal. Selene's eyes met his across the chamber. "Not bad for a beginner," she admitted softly. Trial 3. The Riddle Machine. The final test of the day was chosen by Arya. She led Elias to a small, dimly lit chamber deep within the palace. In the center stood a tall, ancient device made of bronze and crystal. "This is the Riddle Machine," Arya explained. "It is said to be older than our empire. To pass, you must solve its puzzle and unlock the crystal heart at its center. No one has done it in over 50 years. The machine lit up with shifting symbols and glowing pathways. Most people tried to solve it by memorizing the patterns, but Elias studied it for several minutes without touching it. Then he smiled slightly. "It's not just a puzzle, it's a map." "What do you mean?" Arya asked. "These symbols, they're coordinates. They're not meant to line up. They're meant to lead somewhere in three-dimensional space inside the device. If you follow the wrong order, it resets." Carefully, he touched a series of glowing points in a sequence no one else had tried. The machine hummed, and a small crystal sphere floated out of its center. The room went silent. Arya stared at him, wide-eyed. "You actually solved it." Elias handed her the sphere. "Every puzzle is made by someone. If you understand how they think, you can solve it." When they returned to the throne room, the king looked at his daughters. "And what do you think now?" Lyra was quiet for a moment before speaking. "He handled the storm well. That was impressive." Selene nodded slowly. "He debates with purpose, not just words." Arya smiled openly. "And he solved the riddle I thought no one could solve." The king's gaze turned to Elias. "You have passed the first day of trials, but do not grow too confident. There is still more to come." Elias inclined his head. "I will be ready." As the court dispersed, the sisters walked ahead, speaking softly to one another. Elias followed at a respectful distance, but he couldn't help overhearing part of their conversation. "He's not what I expected," Selene said. "Nor I," Lyra admitted reluctantly. Arya laughed. "I think this might actually be fun." Elias didn't smile, but inside, he knew he had taken the first real step toward earning their respect, and perhaps toward something far greater. The following day began with clear skies above the Crystal City. The morning sun reflected across the palace towers, sending bright flashes through the windows. Captain Elias Vance expected another trial within the palace walls, but instead, Lyra informed him of a change in plans. "Today's test," she said, "will take place on a royal convoy to the Vega outpost. We will see how you handle responsibility during a real mission." Elias didn't argue. A real mission meant real consequences. If anything went wrong, it wouldn't just be a game for the court's amusement. The convoy consisted of 3 Tarvan, warships, and 2 cargo carriers. Elias traveled aboard the lead ship with the princesses and a crew of experienced Tarvan officers. The trip began smoothly. The ships glided through open space, their engines humming softly. Selene took a seat beside Elias in the observation deck. "This route is usually safe," she said, "but keep in mind, pirates sometimes lurk near the Vega corridor. They know trade ships pass through here." Elias nodded, his eyes on the vast darkness ahead. "Then we should be ready for them." The ambush hours into the journey, alarms blared through the ship. The communications officer shouted, "Multiple vessels approaching from the Vega corridor. They're not sending identification codes." Lyra's expression hardened. "Pirates." On the main screen, 5 smaller ships appeared, moving fast. They were armed, but not heavily armored. The pirates were counting on speed and surprise to overwhelm the convoy. The Tarvan captain turned to Lyra. "Princess, we should prepare for evasive maneuvers." Before she could reply, Elias stepped forward. "Wait. If we run, they'll target the cargo carriers. We can't protect them all if we scatter." Selene frowned. "What do you suggest?" "Use their speed against them," Elias said quickly. "Form the convoy into a tight circle around the carriers. Put the warships outside as a shield. If we slow down just a little, they'll try to rush in close. That's when we can trap them." The Tarvan captain hesitated. It was not their usual tactic. But Lyra's eyes narrowed in thought. "Do it. Follow the humans' plan." Turning the tide. The convoy shifted into a defensive ring, the warships moving in perfect coordination. The pirates, confident that the convoy was trying to protect its cargo, accelerated straight toward them. When the enemy ships closed in, Elias gave a single command. "Now! Push forward!" The warship suddenly broke the ring, surging toward the pirates. The maneuver forced the attackers into a tight cluster, their ships too close to maneuver freely. Elias pointed to the targeting officer. Fire only at their engines, not the hulls. Disable them. Don't destroy them. The Tarvan crew exchanged surprised glances but obeyed. Precision blasts lit up the darkness, knocking out the pirates' propulsion systems one by one. Within minutes, all 5 enemy ships drifted helplessly in space. Aftermath silence filled the bridge except for the hum of the engines. The crew looked at Elias, some with disbelief, others with respect. Lyra stepped toward him. "You took a risk. If that had failed, we could have lost everything. But it didn't fail," Elias replied calmly. "And now you have prisoners you can question instead of wreckage floating in space." Celine nodded slowly. "It is rare to win without bloodshed in a battle like this." Arya grinned. "That was amazing. I've never seen anyone use that tactic before." The Tarvan captain spoke formally. "Princesses, the human strategy saved the convoy. I will include this in my report to His Majesty, a change in perspective." When the convoy reached the Vega outpost, the sisters gathered with Elias in the station's grand hall. Lyra studied him with a thoughtful expression. "When you first arrived, I thought your people had little to offer, beyond words, but you think in ways that are unusual. Perhaps that is a strength." Celine added, "You look for a path where both sides can walk away alive. That is not weakness. It is skill." Elias met their gazes evenly. "Every fight avoided is a fight you've already won. But when you can't avoid it, you make sure it ends with the fewest losses possible." Arya's smile widened. "I think you might actually survive this after all." The king's hidden approval, back at the palace, the king received the report of the battle. He listened without interrupting as the Tarvan captain described the humans' tactics. When the story ended, the king leaned back in his crystal throne, a faint smile touching his lips. "Interesting," he murmured. The court mocked him for his size and his species. Yet he turned a pirate attack into a victory without destruction. That is the kind of thinking the Tarvan Empire will need in the years to come. His advisor bowed. "It seems your choice was wise, Majesty." The king's eyes glowed faintly. "We shall see. The final trials are yet to come." That night, Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The 3 sisters joined him quietly, each holding a cup of steaming blue tea. The stars above shone brighter than on any Earth night. Lyra broke the silence. "Tomorrow's trials will be harder. But I think you understand something important now." Elias turned to her. "And what's that?" "That winning isn't always about being the strongest," Lyra said. Celine added softly, "It's about being the smartest, and sometimes the most patient." Arya raised her cup. "To tomorrow, then. May it be as interesting as today." Elias smiled faintly. "I have no doubt it will be." Above them, the stars shimmered, silent witnesses to a changing story. The gap between human and Tarvan had begun to close, not with power but with respect. The next day began quietly, but the calm felt strange. After the excitement of the trials and the pirate ambush, Captain Elias Vance expected another challenge. Instead, no messenger came to summon him to the Great Hall. He decided to use the time to walk through the palace gardens. The air smelled faintly of silver blossoms, and streams of glowing water flowed between crystal bridges. It was peaceful, too peaceful for a place where politics ruled every decision. As he crossed a narrow bridge, Elias heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Selene approaching. She was alone, without guards or attendants. "You seem thoughtful." "Today, Captain," she said. "I'm wondering what comes next," Elias replied. "It feels like something is being prepared." Selene walked beside him, her gaze on the shining water. "Something is. But you deserve to know the truth before it arrives." A hidden purpose. They stopped beneath a tall silver tree whose branches swayed without wind. Selene's voice lowered. When my father ordered that my sisters and I marry you, it was not only for politics, it was also for protection, not for us, but for the Tarvan Empire itself. Elias frowned. Protection? From whom? Selene's eyes were calm, but serious. There are empires that fear the Tarvan. They watch for weakness. My father believes those same powers also fear humanity, not because of your weapons, but because of your unpredictability. You do not think like they do. You do not fight like they do. That makes them cautious. So this marriage, Elias said slowly, would make those enemies hesitate. Yes, Selena nodded. If you were bound to our family, attacking us would mean attacking humanity. They would not risk it. Elias took a deep breath. The trials had felt personal, a way to prove his worth to the sisters. But now he understood they were also about proving to the galaxy that the Tarvan and humanity could stand together. The King Speaks. Later that afternoon, Elias was summoned to the king's private audience chamber. The room was smaller than the throne hall, but its crystal walls glowed warmly in the light. The king stood beside a large star map that showed the known galaxy. Dozens of small lights moved slowly across it, fleets and patrols, both Tarvan and foreign. Captain Vance, the king began, I imagine my daughter has told you something of my reasons. She has, Elias said. You believe our two peoples together could stop a war before it starts. The king's golden eyes studied him. Correct. But it is more than that. The Tarvan have power, but we are predictable to those who have studied us for centuries. Humans, however, are new to this stage. Your thinking is not shaped by the same traditions. You act in ways others cannot predict. That is why you are dangerous, and why you are valuable. Elias looked at the map. You're not only thinking about protection, are you? You're thinking about expansion. The king gave a small smile. Expansion of influence, not territory. An alliance with humanity could open paths closed to us for generations. In return, humanity would gain access to our technology and protection in the darker corners of the galaxy. Elias understood the weight of the proposal. And the trials? They are for my daughters, the king said. They must see for themselves why you are worthy. Without their acceptance, this alliance will never work. The sisters' discussion. That evening, the three sisters met in a quiet lounge overlooking the city. Lyra sipped a cup of dark tea. Selene leaned back in her chair, and Arya sat cross-legged on the couch. He's not like the others who come here, Lyra said finally. Most visitors try to impress us with power or wealth. He uses neither. Selene nodded. He listens before he acts. That is rare. Arya smiled. And he's fun. I wouldn't mind having him around. Lyra gave her youngest sister a look. This is not about fun, Arya. Maybe not, Arya replied. But if father is right, having a human in the royal family might change how the galaxy sees us. And I don't think I'd mind that change. A test of trust the next morning. Before the final trial could be announced, an unexpected message arrived at the palace. It was from a neutral trade guild, one known for selling information to the highest bidder. The message was simple. We know about the king's marriage plan. Others will know soon, too. The king summoned Elias and the sisters. This is what I feared, he said. If our enemies hear of this before the alliance is official, they may try to stop it by force. Elias considered the options. Then we need to make the announcement ourselves, before the rumor spreads. If it comes from you, it will seem like strength, not desperation. Lyra's brow furrowed. That would be bold. It would also be dangerous, Selene added. Once announced, there is no turning back. Arya leaned forward. But if we do nothing, the news will come out in a way we can't control. The king's gaze rested on Elias. You suggest we turn this into a declaration of power? Yes, Elias said. Show them we're not afraid. Decision. The king considered for a long moment. Then he nodded. Prepare the grand hall. Tonight, the court and the galaxy will hear our decision. As Elias left the chamber with the sisters, he felt the weight of what was coming. In just a few hours, the king would stand before the galaxy and announce a human as part of the royal family. It would either cement an alliance or invite danger from every corner of space. For the first time, the outcome of this mission was not only about passing trials, it was about stepping into a role that could change the future of two civilizations. And deep down, Elias knew there would be no turning back. The grand hall of the Tarvan Palace had never been so crowded. Crystal pillars lined the walls, glowing softly with golden light. Hundreds of courtiers, diplomats, and guests from across the galaxy stood in careful rows, waiting for the king's announcement. The air was thick with curiosity and quiet tension. Captain Elias Vance stood near the center of the hall, wearing a ceremonial robe the king had given him. The fabric shimmered faintly, catching the light like liquid silver. To his right stood Princess Lyra, tall and composed. To his left, Princess Selene, calm and watchful. And beside Selene, Princess Arya, smiling faintly as if she were keeping a pleasant secret. At the far end of the hall, the king rose from his crystal throne. His golden eyes swept across the crowd, silencing every whisper. The Declaration. Leaders of the Tarvan Empire, honored guests, and citizens of our worlds. The king began, his voice carrying easily through the hall. Today, I speak of a choice for the future of our people. The galaxy grows restless. Old alliances weaken, and shadows gather at our borders. But I say to you, the Tarvan will not face the coming storms alone. A murmur ran through the crowd. The king lifted a hand toward Elias. This human stands before you as more than an envoy. He has faced trials of skill, of wisdom, and of courage. He has earned not only my respect, but the respect of my daughters. Therefore, I announce that Captain Elias Vance will join the royal family through a binding alliance, one that ties our people together as equals. The hall erupted into voices, some surprised, some approving, others doubtful. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. I did not expect to find worth in a human envoy, but he has shown me that strength comes in many forms. Selene spoke. Next. He sees paths where others see walls. Such vision is rare and it is needed. Arya smiled brightly. And he makes life more interesting. The vows of alliance, in the center of the hall, a low crystal platform shimmered to life. The king gestured for Elias and the princesses to step onto it. A Tarvan elder, robed in deep blue, approached and held out a ceremonial chain made of silver links and golden stars. This is the bond of worlds, the elder said. It symbolizes two peoples joining in purpose and trust. Elias placed one hand on the chain. The three sisters placed their hands over his. A soft hum filled the air as the chain glowed faintly, sealing the alliance in the eyes of the court. The elder spoke the final words. From this day, the Tarvan Empire and humanity stand together, not as master and servant, but as equals. The first test of the alliance. The ceremony might have ended in peace, but fate had other plans. A sudden alarm echoed through the hall. A Tarvan guard rushed in, saluting the king. Your Majesty, long-range sensors have detected a fleet moving toward our border. They are not answering hails. Identification suggests they belong to the Karathi Dominion. The hall fell into uneasy silence. The Karathi were one of the powers the king had spoken of, a rival empire known for testing the strength of their neighbors. The king's voice remained calm. How many ships? 17, Majesty, the guard replied. Mostly war cruisers. The king turned toward Elias. It seems the galaxy has chosen to test this alliance immediately. Facing the threat within the hour, Elias found himself aboard a Tarvan command ship alongside Lyra, Selene, and Arya. The fleet moved quickly toward the border, crystal hulls gleaming against the blackness of space. On the bridge, Lyra studied the tactical display. If the Karathi cross the line, our laws require us to respond with force. They want you to fire first, Elias said. That way, they can claim you started it. Selene's brow furrowed. So what do you suggest? Elias leaned over the display. Let them come closer, but keep our ships in a defensive formation. Send out unmanned drones to appear as scouts. They'll think we're holding back, and their formation will loosen as they get confident. Then we cut them off, not with weapons, but with a communication wall. Flood their channels with every signal we have, trade offers, alliance notices, even music from both our worlds. Make it impossible for them to coordinate without retreating. The Tarvan officers looked skeptical, but Lyra's eyes lit with interest. It's unconventional, but it could work. Turning them away, as predicted, the Karathi fleet approached slowly at first, then faster as they sensed no immediate attack. When they were close enough, the Tarvan ships released a wave of drones that formed a ring around the intruders. Within seconds, the Karathi channels filled with overlapping transmissions. Trade documents, cultural broadcasts, songs and images, a flood of harmless but unstoppable noise. Confused and unable to give clear orders, the Karathi ships broke formation. After several minutes, their leader sent a single frustrated message. We will speak another time. The fleet turned away, vanishing into the dark. Respect earned on. The command ship's bridge, the crew exchanged glances of amazement. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. You ended a border threat without a single shot fired, Selene nodded. And without giving them an excuse to rally others against us. Arya grinned. I told you he was interesting. The king's voice came through the comms from the palace. Captain Vance, it seems your alliance has already proven its worth. Well done. A new beginning, back at the palace, the celebrations resumed, now carrying the weight of fresh victory. The court that had once mocked the human envoy now looked at him with new respect. Elias stood beside the three sisters as the guests toasted the new bond between their peoples. He knew challenges would still come. Alliances were not made in a single day. But the first steps had been taken. Lyra spoke quietly so only he could hear. I may not have chosen this path, but I am starting to believe it was the right one. Selene added, You've changed the way I see the galaxy. Arya laughed softly. And now you're stuck with us. Elias smiled. There are worse fates. Above the palace, the twin suns dipped toward the horizon, casting golden light over the crystal towers. In that moment, the human and the three alien sisters stood not as strangers from distant worlds, but as allies, bound by trust, respect, and the shared belief that together they could shape the galaxy's future. And somewhere in the quiet space between stars, their enemies took notice and began to wonder if humanity was truly as fragile as they once believed.